All right, everyone, it's time for Double Standards 101 as Jake Tapper weighed in yesterday. A Florida GOP outlet that thankfully was closed at the time had several shots fired at it, like they shot out some of the windows. If there had, think about it this way: people are like, "Oh, well, it was closed at the time, no risk." Well, that Sayok dude, none of the stuff that he mailed could actually explode, so it's basically the same thing, no victim. In this case, though, what if the night janitor had been there sweeping the floor? To remove Karl Rove's turds or his vomit or whatever after he gets drunk for the third time that day, and he gets his arm blown off or something. Then he has to get workers' comp, or the liberals going to clamor to give him more money. No, he's a Republican, so fuck him probably. Here you have an act of and Jake Tapper calls it vandalism. It's a vandalism case. Yes, firing your weapon at windows is now a form of vandalism, assuming that it's a GOP outlet. I don't think that that's reality, Jake. I think that you're living in La La Land. No, this is a terrorist attack in essence. It's an attempt to make people... look, the fact that the person's like, well, no one's in there, it's okay, I'll blow out the windows. It's still an attempt to incite terror in people based on their political affiliation. One could assume, I mean, it is in Florida, one could assume maybe it's sort of retribution for Sayok or something like that. It was probably a far leftist. It was probably like most center leftists don't like guns very much, but then you've got a rising sort of militant sect of the far left. It's like, yeah, no, we're not going to give up. We love guns. We train with them all the time. And you see them and they're wearing fursuits and weird shit like that. But they do like guns. I mean, they're like, basically like left-wing redneck army or some stupid shit like that. Jake Tapper, meanwhile, from the comfort of his $1 million office is like, oh, you're shooting people's windows out. And if this were a Democratic office, we would literally be calling for an FBI investigation, saying it's evidence of the toxic atmosphere and Trump and everything else. You know that they would. If this were a DNC office, a satellite office, getting its windows shot out, they'd say it was probably an evil, despicable racist. It's someone inspired by our president being evil and toxic and saying mean things on Twitter. Extreme far right, it's a terrorist attack. The fact that they're calling it vandalism because it happened to be an RNC satellite office is very, very telling. Now, Jake Tapper, of course, not exactly the most trusted name in news at this point. But yeah, I thought that was funny. Keep in mind, this is a little bit of evidence of newspeak. This is sort of a telltale sign that you've entered propagandist territory. When labels that don't really make sense start to be used and then an attempt is made to popularize them, like migrant caravan. It's not really migrants. These individuals are technically an invasion force because they are openly stating and amassing for that purpose. Migration is a little bit different. It's like, hey, we went across the border in small numbers, usually trying not to get caught because that's the whole point. You don't want to get caught and deported or whatever. Or like Patriot Act. Patriot Act is newspeak. Well, it's not patriotic. You slap the name Patriot on it and all of a sudden 10% fewer people will criticize it and they'll just say, oh, that sounds good. It's for patriots. They don't even read the context of it. Or any other family-friendly sounding name. So, in other words, an attack on an RNC field office, right before the midterms, that won't get talked about much by the mainstream media. It's like, nobody got hurt, unless 10 people die, who cares? Like when Scalise there got shot, nobody cared about that for more than a day. It's just vandalism. Yeah, it's just like, it's like the local kids decided to fire some shots into a political field office. Yeah, it's just the bros. Some dude, he got a little drunk driving, he probably got caught later that night, he's probably in on DUI. He just decided to shoot out some windows. He probably didn't even know it was an RNC field office. Just an act of vandalism, people. It's nothing to worry about. It's nothing to worry about that someone out there is on the loose in that area of Florida. They're armed, and they're apparently motivated enough to take the risk of getting caught shooting out windows for political reasons, even though there could theoretically have been someone inside. It's like, oh, it's later on in the day, therefore nobody's in this building. How the fuck do you know? Again, have you ever heard of a fucking janitor? Yes, political offices need a lot of janitors because there's a lot of shit thrown around in them all day. Whether it's Democrat or Republican, by the way, it makes no difference. They're all full of shit for the most part. They're politicians. Just an act of vandalism, Jake. Nothing to worry about. You've got the minimalization of problems insofar as those problems could at this moment be used as fodder by the political right wing. So you see, again, it's like it's not an invasion. Don't worry about those 10 to 15,000 migrants storming the border, or refugees, or illegals, whatever you want to call them. It doesn't even matter. Terms no longer stick or even really have any meaning. Just those human beings who are not from this country approaching the border. It's not a big problem because they're not armed like soldiers. That's literally what the media spin cycle is insinuating right now. Well, no, Trump's wrong. It's just civilians. Well, okay, but there's like 10, 15,000 of them. They're openly stating they intend to enter illegally. Oh, no, it's not a big problem. Don't worry about it too much. They're not an invasion force. They don't have axes and machetes and shit. Even though there's a second group now that supposedly it was confronted by Mexican authorities and they were armed. They did have guns and bombs and things of that nature. Now, of course, not sure that they're going to carry explosives all the way across Mexico successfully, but the intent is there, I guess. Yeah, it's newspeak. And then it's just an act of vandalism. The GOP office was vandalized by someone who shot at the fucking windows. But they probably thought there was nobody inside, so it's okay. It's not meant to frighten people. It's not meant to, frighten people during the midterms. Look, in a race, by the way, can I point this out? It's just like with Sayok. Okay, let's assume that he was super Trump fan and that there's no shenanigans going on and he's not just a fucking nut. Okay, well, he hurt his own political movement's chances for the midterms. Florida's race is very, very close between Scott and what's-his-name and their governor's race. So you have such an act happen. Is this not potentially going to backfire on the left there and actually embolden potentially people on the right and say, well, fucking enough is enough of this. Now they're getting violent and the left is getting uppity, so it's time to suppress these people. Could very much happen. Yeah, maybe it was, in all honesty, by the way, shoe on the other foot, it could have been a right-winger false flagging it for the purposes of the Florida races. Let's not fucking leave out that possibility. It is, yeah, potentially the case. Maybe there's less evidence that that would be the case than for Sayok, but of course, it doesn't matter. Let's be honest with ourselves. So yeah, it's just vandalism. It was just a prank, bro. Shooting out windows is okay. It's not a big deal. Dude, it happens all the time. To political field, it's okay. Remember when that other Republican field office, I think it was, 2 months ago, was burned to the ground? And there have been other cases where they've been attacked, like people smash out the windows and stuff. It generally happens to the Republican field offices. I haven't heard many cases of Democratic field offices being vandalized, a la Jake Tapper. Yeah, that time they tried to burn the building to the ground. That's just vandalism too. It's yeah, some smoke damage. Yeah, okay, you need another. Just slap a coat of paint on it, put in new windows and a door. You're fine, dude. Jake Tapper says, don't worry about it, bro. Smoke a doob. That's about all. Peace out.